Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another inspiring episode on the Global Joe podcast. I'm your host, Chukma T. Joseph, and today we are privileged to sit with a very special guest in the building. He is a guide and a mentor to so many young men and women across the world. He's a thought leader, he's a teacher, he's a man that has deep wisdom. He's Mr. Tola T.A Alabi. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for this amazing opportunity to share your thoughts with us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
It's a honor that I won't hear of anytime soon. When I think about how I first got to know you, how I got to know about you the first time, I was scrolling through recommended podcasts on Spotify, and I came across this episode titled Branding 101 Masterclass for Business and Creative. So I I added it to my playlist because at that time I was doing research into building a brand identity for myself. I was still coming up with the idea of road jokes. I wanted to know what it takes to build a brand identity. So I saved it. But then it wasn't until 3 months later I listened to it because I found out that when I wanted to listen to it for the first time, it was over 1 hour long. And at that time, I wasn't used to listening to episodes that are over 30 minutes. I felt like 30 minutes is enough time for anyone to make their point. But then on this particular day, I had exhausted all the episodes I saved on that page. There was nothing else to listen to. So I said, okay, why don't I just use this opportunity to listen to this episode today since I have time? So I listened to it and it was such a powerful, message for me. It really resonated very much. I learned a lot and I went ahead to podcast and I listened to several other messages that day. And for me, that began a very transformative journey in my life because from that moment on, I started listening to podcasts every single day unfailingly. And I also made it, I made a decision that I will listen to every single episode on the podcast because what I found out is each time I listen to the episode, no matter the topic you are speaking on, whether it's business, marriage, whether it's whatsoever topic you are speaking on, I always get to find clarity. Sometimes it might not be the whole dialogue. Sometimes it's just one sentence for me that, I just pick that one sentence and that is just what I need from that episode. So no matter what you are talking on, I always get to find clarity from it. And, I think that's been the most amazing thing that happened to me this year because I can see the effects in my life. I can see how there's a lot of changes, the way I think, the way I talk, the way I react. There's a lot of changes in every aspect of my life. So it was as a result of, listening to that podcast. And so you can imagine how honored I feel, to be seated with someone I listen to every single day and then you're speaking directly to me, answering my questions. I'm really honored to have you today.
Thank you very much. That's very encouraging feedback. Question from you. Thanks for your dedication in listening to the podcast. That means a lot because it has taken a whole lot of my own time as a person. So when I have people that tell me that they listen to it, it has impact on them. I remember when you contacted me and told me you are listening to it, and you told me that you're going to listen from the very first one to the other. I was like, nobody can do that. But you actually did it, and I was very impressed with that you were able to keep it up and go to even podcasts that I can't even remember recording. But thank you so much for that feedback.
Thank you so much. I would love to begin with this question. You describe yourself on your bio, on the bio of your social media handle, as a thought leader. Can you help us understand what it means to be a thought leader?
That's a good question. What does it mean to be a thought leader? It was very hard for me to even describe myself as a thought leader. Because for me, I always thought leading was for people that were more academic. So I thought I needed to have a PhD, I needed to have like 2 masters, I needed to be a professor. I thought leading was something so grand. It was always something so grand to me as someone who thought that this person would be so well educated, so vastly educated. But then I've come to understand thoughts in a very unique way. And I've come to understand thinking in a very unique way. That thinking is not really about education. It's less about education as it is about um, receiving. And so I see myself as someone who receives a lot of inspiration. So thought is less about education, more about inspiration. And so I see myself as someone who gets very easily inspired. And that means that I have things come to my mind that I have not really um, taken time to ruminate about, but they just been given to me. And that's what I see deep thought. Deep thought is you being a receptacle of an energy out there, a message out there, without interfering too much with that message by putting in your own experience, your own intellect, your own your own culture, where you are just able to be an unhindered flow to a higher message. So for me, a thought leader is somebody who allows that message that comes from without to flow through them without them manipulating it in a way. You understand? Saying, oh, I'm going to try to say this thing as a man. I'm going to try to say this thing as a 40-year-old. I'm going to try to say this thing as a Nigerian, but just allow this thing come in the truest language it can come in. So that's why I refer myself as a thought leader, as somebody who speaks more out of inspiration, out of a spiritual leading, rather than an education about something.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so if I get you correctly, being a thought leader basically means being a vessel that allows inspiration to flow. So it's not more about thinking, it's not more about processing the thought, but more about allowing the thought to flow through you.
Yes,
Wow.
allowing the thought in its most original form flow through you. It's just like I'm going to compare it to art. The best artist is the one who doesn't tamper with inspiration, who is not trying to paint to sell, but painting to reveal. He wants to reveal, he or she wants to reveal something in their mind, something that is bugging them, something that has been given to them. So the best artist is somebody who is a good channel, who is a good vessel through which the spirit of art can flow. So the best thought leader is also that person who is able to say things that he or she has been gifted with in a particular area. It might be in the area of science, sports, parenting, whatever, and you are able to speak what you what what you've been gifted with by a much higher power, and you can say it without interfering with your own personal bias or your culture or what you've learned in the past, and just let it go out to someone who would need to hear it and be transformed by it.
Wow.
So a lot of people that we might call thought leaders, a lot of people that have been thought leaders over time have been propagators of um, their own personal experience and their own education. So, and I'm not saying those people are not thought leaders, but what I'm saying is, you know, this is where the difference between children and adults lie. Um, children are more, the children question what they don't understand so that they can find their way through life. Adults, on the other hand, question what they understand so that they can have their way in life. They are two different things. Children will not question what they understand. They only question what they don't understand so that they can find their way, so that they can be guided.
Yeah.
Adults will question what they understand so that they can have their way, so that they can manipulate their way. You understand? So that they can force their way. And that's the problem. So you see that when you are a thought leader that goes basically based on it is very easy for you to propagate a bias. Like I do podcasts, as you said, but a lot of things when I'm even speaking on my podcast, a lot of things I'm talking about as I coming through my mouth, I'm like, this is addressing me. Tola, you yourself need to go and change your ways of this thing. Sometimes it's hard for me to say, but I'm like, I need to go and change. I need to go and improve. So a thought leader is not as much a teacher. He's also he or she is also a partaker. So my wife always asks me, wow, I spend a lot of time listening to my podcast. In fact, I don't listen to any other thing on Spotify but my podcast. I listened to my podcast this morning. I listened to two this morning. And my wife is always asking me, why do you listen to your podcast? Yeah, I know that I recorded it now. Why do you listen to it? I said, because those thoughts are not coming from me, they're just coming through me. So even after recording, I need to go and listen to it and learn from it. You see, so we always see thought leading as someone standing on a pedestal and talking down at people. But no, thought leading is everybody standing on the same level. I'm just a source coming to one person on that level, that one person being able to translate it into the language of every other person.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for really breaking that down, for really helping us understand what it means to be a thought leader. Yeah. So as I said earlier, this session is going to be a Q&A where we'll be exploring questions on spirituality, business, technology, and education. So I'm going to begin with question on spirituality. You have spoken numerous times about resting and knowing that God is in control. We often say that God works best when we rest. But what I struggle to grasp is when you say pushing too much for something to the point of losing sleep and health is a sign that one is on the wrong path. So the question is this: for a young man or a young lady like myself, still in the cradle of building, a career, how does this principle apply?
Um, so this principle, I think the principle of work and rest has always been one of contention because we do not understand, number one, what work is, and number two, what rest is. So when we think, so a lot of time when we think of work, we think of it as a separate, as a different compartment in life. So it's just like this tumbler on the table now. So we see this is work, this is rest, this is family, this is prayer. So we have a table full of things. But you know that we don't understand what work is because we think work is something we do and close from. But work is what we are here to do on earth. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Work is the activity on earth. Work is not what you do to get paid. Work is what you do while we are alive. So work is life. Work is life. Work is not an occupation. Work is not a career. Work is living. Is how do you live your life? So you don't get to working age. You are always in working age once you are born to the world. So a baby, the work of a baby is to cry, breastfeed, play, go to bed. That's the work of a baby. That's their work. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So we all have work. Work is not, you don't retire from work. When you retire from work, you die. You understand? That death is retirement from work. Work is your existence on earth. Now, what is rest? Rest is not inactivity. Rest is not sleep. Rest is not sitting down and doing nothing. Those things are not the proper definition of rest. Rest is ease. Rest is to be at ease. So you see that even in the military, they have attention and they have tell you to stand at attention, stand at ease. Yeah. But stand at ease means stand at rest, but they don't tell them to lie down. They're not lying down. Just means let your muscles be relaxed. Let your muscles be relaxed. What God tells us when He tells us to rest is let your muscles be relaxed. And your muscle cannot be relaxed when you are pushing or pulling with something. So God wants us to live a life of easy work, restful work. You understand what I'm saying? So you are not pushing through life. You are doing something without you are doing something that is not causing you to have fatigue. I remember there was a day there was a cat entered my compound, middle of the night. My dog was back. I was like, it was back, and I was looking under the car. Or we knew there was something, but it was so dark, we couldn't tell what it was. And in the morning, we realized it was a cat. Because when we woke up, we realized that got the cat and that killed the cat, unfortunately. But the cat had trespassed into our, but the dog was barking all night. And I looked at that dog, and it had barked all night. But then the next day, it was still barking without losing his voice. You understand what the voice? And I was like, how can something use that voice medium all night very aggressively and not have a sore throat? It doesn't happen because the dog was made to bark easily. Do you understand? It doesn't cause the dog stress to bark. That is the work of the dog. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what I try to tell young people is you need to find your place of ease, what you do easily, what you do easily, what comes to you without a the fatigue of too much preparation. Now, about 2 weeks ago, I went somewhere and I was invited to a birthday party. I went with my wife and we were at that birthday party. It started at 8 o'clock and ended at 2:30 p.m. I don't usually go parties like that, but I told us the party would be very long, 2:30 p.m. And so we slept at 2:30 p.m. and I had to wake up at because I had a speaking engagement the next day. I had to speak somewhere. So I had to wake up at around 6:30. Now on a good day, what do you expect? I have a speaking engagement. I was slept at 2:30, woke up at 6:30. I had a speaking engagement. On a good day, what you expect is that I will wake up and immediately start to practice for my speaking engagement. But I didn't do that. I told my wife, I woke up and said, yes, before we went to a resort, but we had a resort. So I told my wife, let's get up, let's go out and see the animal. And so we went out and we strolled, we looked around, we saw the animals, squirrels, antelope, stuff like that. And then we came back and said, let's go for breakfast. And we went for breakfast. And after breakfast, we drove to town and we were talking. And my wife said, we had this thing in a few minutes. I said, I know, let's go. And I came and I spoke. And it was good. You see, I did that work of speaking with rest. Some people, they would have to go to bed early because they have a speaking engagement next day.
Yeah.
You have to wake up early to practice exactly what they want to say. You have to skip breakfast. Do you understand what I'm saying? That now becomes a little bit, because that's what you call pressure. You now begin to put pressure to deliver on work. The real work is not pressure filled, it's restful. So it's that work that you can do without losing your health, without losing your peace, without feeling pressured. That's what the concept of work and rest is actually about.
Well, thank you so much for that answer. I think this answer actually answers the next question, but I was going to ask you, you emphasize often on godly principles. How can a person balance spirituality and ambition? But from what you said now about work, I think when you find your work, then you find that balance between spirituality and ambition. So it's no longer going to be an ambition. Just as you say, work is life. So it's just you living your life. So if you are not ambitious,
Yeah.
you are not trying to work too hard to get it, you're not trying to struggle.
Yeah.
You are simply just living your life.
Exactly. And see, the thing is when you find your work, you will find God. A lot of people struggle with the concept of God because they don't find their work. When you find your work, you will find God. God, see, the concept of God is not in church. It's not in religion. It's not in read your Bible, pray every day. The true concept and connection and revelation of God is in the work you do. It's in the truth of the work you do that is the work you really want to do. You know what? If you do the work you really want to do, you will find God. And I'll tell you how. When you do the work you want to do, you will love the people you do it for. You will love waking up every morning. Your perception of life will change. You would look around and you would actually love, number one, you love people you work with, you love people you work for, you love the people you meet on your way to work because you are happy doing what you're doing. And you know, God is love. So when you are waking up, you love people you are working for, you're trusting God. When you wake up and love people you are working with, that's God. When you are on your way to work and you're seeing somebody and like, oh hello, how you doing? And you are smiling to them, that's God. And you begin to see the world in an entirely different way, and you begin to, number one, notice the colors of the flower, the freshness of the breeze, the sound of the birds. There is nobody that does work in love that doesn't have an intimate relationship with God. That's why when God created man, first thing he gave him was work that he loved to do. You understand? So it deepens your relationship with God when you love. That's like for me, it's a very it's for me it's the biggest miss in your life when you do a job that you do not love. It's the biggest miss because there's no way you will struggle to worship God. There's no way you can worship God. There's no way you can love God. There's no way you can love God because God is in the work. God is more in the work than He is in the religion. What the religion does, it helps you to begin to make sense of the God that you see in your work. You understand? It doesn't reveal God to you. It just makes sense of the God that you see and express and tells you that that is God. But that's not where you find God. You understand? Where you find God is in your work. It's in how you live your life and what you do with your life every single day.
Wow. Thank you so much. You really helped me personally, gain a deep understanding of what it means to be spiritual. So spirituality is actually finding your work. Because when you find your work, you find God. So for members of the audience who are listening, who might be having that same struggle with how do you balance spirituality with ambition, with your job, the answer is very simple. You find your work, and your work is that thing, as you have said, that thing you do that gives you ease, that gives you peace, that thing you wake up excited to do, that thing that when you do, you love doing it, you love the people you are doing it for. Yeah, so thank you very much for that response.
Thank you.
Yeah, so moving on to business and policy, the new Nigerian tax code will take effect in January 2026. What are your thoughts regarding this law, and should ordinary Nigerians and even high-income earners be concerned? And then how can young entrepreneurs and uneducated Nigerians prepare? What can they do to prepare for it?
That's an interesting question. Um, you know, if I give my honest thoughts on this tax laws that's going to kick in, the truth of the matter is, it is what's going to happen next year in terms of taxation is not new. It's new to us in Nigeria, but it has been happening in developed countries, say for ages now. And it's going to teach us to curb some things. There's the good and there's the bad side of it. I'll start with the good side of it. The good side of it is a lot of times we as Nigerians we do things impulsively. They're very impulsive. And because they're impulsive, we do things without a deep reason. And so you see at CAC, one individual has like 16 businesses registered. Yeah. Just has an idea. I have to register business. Register, just accumulate. Because it's like it doesn't occupy space in a room. Why that those register the business? Yes, an idea. And just registers business. That's an abuse. And it would help people to take time before committing. I said, do I really need to register this entity? Do I really need to start this business? It will help people to um, to spend more time in sharing their skill on a one-on-one basis rather than registering as a corporation or a limited or an enterprise or things like that. It will make people really begin to think of embrace the concept of freelancing more. For me as a person, I've been against freelance. I never liked concept of freelance. I thought everybody should. If you have something you can do, express it as a business. But then I realized that not freelancing is a good. It's a good foyer before you get into business. There are some people that need to do like 4 to 5 years of freelancing before they start a business so that they are ready for business. Some people are not ready for business. They don't have the discipline for business yet. So they run businesses, and you call them, they don't pick up their phone. You email them, they don't reply you. You send money to them, they don't send you a receipt, they don't invoice you, they don't do anything. Look at them, not ready for business. They need to work. And you see somebody who starts a business today and by next year they are not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
You understand? So they are not truly convinced about what they are doing. And I believe there should be an experience of expressing something for a period of time before you kind of say, let me set up shop and create a logo and do some brand. Because I did logos for years and I did over 500 logos.
Wow.
And I can tell you that over 400 of them are not functional today. They don't exist. The person I did it for said, I don't do that business anymore. But it took me time to make that logo. It took emotion. It took some of my spirituality poured into that thing. For someone to just say, you don't do it anymore, I got this federal government job. And like, I spent my time doing that stuff so that you can run a business that will scale. But you see, because we are impulsive, a lot goes to waste. What this taxation thing will do, because there's a lot of people that will be taxed are business people, you have business account, business this,
Yeah.
you would realize that you will be less you will be less impulsive towards registering business. You understand? And that's a good thing, it's not a bad thing. So that when you do start a business, you do it the right way. When someone does a logo, a business card, you treasure it. When you have a business name, you keep it well. People will be more serious about their business because it's costing them something to set up this business. It's costing them something. So people do not regard things that do not cost them something, that doesn't pay them something. So that's the good thing about it. The bad thing about it is I do believe that I do believe that it's not going to address a lot of issues in the country if it doesn't start from right up there. Do you understand? I think what the government does a lot of times is we need to solve this. So let's get the people to start. Let's start from them. So the taxation cannot start from the people. It has to start from the top. Because you would realize that it's at the top that most of the misappropriation starts. It's at the top that the excesses are. So if you are going to start to clean house, you need to start to clean house from the top. Not from the middle, definitely not from the bottom. What you will recoup from the bottom, if it's still misappropriated at the top, will still be at the same place. So that's the bad part of it. I do not think the people at the top who are making the laws about taxation have their houses in order when it comes to taxation themselves. Because what you realize is that the companies that should be heavily taxed are now, most of them, these guys, they evade tax by setting up foundations. Do you understand? There's a big building in the middle of town right now. Well, it's a big foundation, popular name. You understand? There's something foundation. That thing is such a big place, but it's big not because they're actually doing anything in terms of charitable acts, but it's big because they want to evade tax. So if the big organizations who should be paying a lot of tax are finding ways to evade tax by setting up foundations and things like that, then it's still not going to work. You're going to be taxing the amount of the kiosk, the amount of small business, small and medium business owner, but the large corporations are evading it. What they are paying is just the tiny part. So I believe it's not a bad move, but then I feel there's a tendency for it to be badly executed. Do you understand? And then it shouldn't give the right results.
Wow. And the problem with Nigerian legislature has always been with execution. So it's not a matter of having bad ideas or bad laws, but executing the law properly, making sure that it touches every fringe of society, not just the masses, but the people at the top as well. But I hope that the people who are going to be executing the law will do their best to ensure that it really brings about the change they are looking for. And then towards the advantage, I think what you said is actually very good. It will now help, young, especially the young business. Because personally, I have a friend, he's into event decoration. He recently registered the event decoration as a business. And he has other businesses that he's registered. He has like a taxi company he registered. He has under the event decoration, there's what do you call it again? I can't really remember the name, but he has so many businesses and there's no physical structure. In fact, I think it's when one idea dies, it comes up with another idea and just keep going. So it will really stop that impulsiveness of, oh, I have this good idea, let me just go and work with it. But now you now start thinking very well. And in fact, before you even go to the step of becoming a business, you will make sure that everything on the ground is settled. Yeah. So thank you so much for that response. Now we're going to move on to education. And there's just one question here. What is the role of tertiary and higher education in the life of an individual? And how can young people bridge the gap between academic learning and the kind of wisdom required for real life success?
Yeah. The role of tertiary and tertiary and what
Higher education.
higher education. I think the role is blurring more and more every single day. It is you see the role of higher education, even tertiary education, before the development and advancement of technology used to be there was some information you couldn't get unless you went to a school. I went to Canada in 2005 to study graphic design and interactive multimedia. Why did I go? Because there was nowhere else I could learn it. I had to go to a school abroad to get that information about what to click in Photoshop to change. It was very hard. You couldn't get it anywhere. Somebody in a school would have to teach you that. But when I came back to Canada in 2007, I realized that bubble was beginning to burst. So when I came back to Nigeria, my friends who had not gone to school knew just as much as I knew from their room. I said, how did you learn these things? They have learned it. There's this new website that just watch the video. There was a place called Video Copilot. I don't know if it still exists now, but there's a guy running Video Copilot. He used to teach people how to make After Effects, film effects. He used to teach people, and it was very popular. I've forgotten the guy's name, but Video Copilot was a go-to place. And I had a friend who learned almost everything he could do from Video Copilot. And at the time I came back to Nigeria, I had a Canadian certificate, looking for a job. He didn't have a certificate. He was already working with BBC. Wow. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because BBC was like, can you do this thing? He could do it, gave him a test, he did it. Where did he learn it from? On the internet. So you see now, I spent over $20,000 to learn it. He just spent money for data to learn it. You understand what I'm saying? Who wasted more money? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So by the time I came back, he was already earning. Then I was trying to tell people I'm coming from Canada. We don't really care. We don't. I pay this guy. He's doing it. So you see, he was the one that even introduced me to the first job I had. I said, give this guy, my friend, a chance. He knows how to do this thing. So nobody really cared. So today, my certificate from Canada is still up there. Nobody's asking me for it. It's what can you do? And I'm talking about this. I'm talking about 2008. Imagine how it is now, 2025, where information is out there. So the bubble has burst. You can learn anything on any subject matter on a platform right now. Okay. That is either free or close to free. And so it's not as expensive as getting on a plane and going to an institution or spending 4 years in a Nigerian institution. In fact, what I even learned in Nigerian institution is a lot of it is outdated stuff because your lecturer doesn't even know how to use some of these things. When it comes to technology, my kids know more than their teachers. So you see them sometimes they'll come home and they'll be laughing at their teacher. Then can you imagine this teacher said this about this? Because the teacher is not as enlightened technologically as the average 9 to 13-year-old. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there was someone talking with my son, and he was I forgot what class he was in, but it was in primary school, one class, and he was saying he told his teacher the style of roofing called a pagoda, and the teacher did not understand. He said, "What's pagoda?" He said, "My teacher did not know what it was," and I'm like, I studied architecture. I didn't know what a pagoda was till I was in university studying architecture. My son in primary two at that point in time to tell you, oh, it's the roof is like a pagoda. By the way, they learn it on TV, watching PDA maps. You understand what I'm saying? So, what is the use? It's blurry. It's very blurry. I really feel tertiary institution and higher institution need to prove themselves now. They really need to prove themselves as to why I need to part with this money and commit this amount of time. I personally feel there's nothing in this world, nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, no subject matter, whether medicine or whatever it is, there is no subject matter that is worth spending 4 years in school for anymore. There's none. That 4 years is just a subject matter that has been stretched out to profit school, to collect money for. Nothing in this world right now is 4 years worth of information to make you a professional. There's not. Nothing. School should be nothing more than 2 years. I'm telling you. With information that we have, it's there's nothing that you are spending 4 years to do. Nothing. No subject matter they are doing for 4 years to understand what the core of that thing is. Nothing. There's nothing. So it is almost like um it's almost like we are going to these higher institutions, tertiary institutions emotionally. It's emotional because over time we've been told that we need it. But we've not come to question why do we truly need it. Like my father in his 70s, when he went to university, it was important to go to university because there was no TV, there was no internet, there was no laptop, there was no iPad, there was no, he had to go and learn from a school that had a white man teaching them and telling them, in my country, this is how this is done. What are you doing in a white man to teach you? You see them, do you know, it's possible for you to live in Nigeria and see white people more than you see black people.
Yes.
If you just stay in your room, you see white people, but when you now see black people, they now begin to look strange. Because every time you put on the internet, you are seeing more white people than black people. So you see, that international information, that education has paused. It doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. So I really feel the onus is on the universities, secondary schools, to begin to say, what is the use of people coming here? Are we really giving them what is our unique selling point? What extra thing are they getting? What extra advantage are they getting from going through this institution that we're presenting to them that's costing them money and costing them time? I don't think a lot of them can answer it right now.
Wow. Thank you so much for that response. And personally, I can relate to, what you just said now because, I when I finished my secondary school, I went to study computer engineering and web design. So I paid, the payment was supposed to be 100K. I paid 50K, that's advance, so that when I go like halfway, I made the complete payment. So I finished computer engineering and then I entered into web designing. I stopped at web design. I was supposed to complete programming, but the fund was not available. So I went home. But then I went home and I started going through YouTube. I was not teaching myself coding, JavaScript, CSS and the rest. And so I got to, like, I wouldn't say become a professional, but I got to really understand what programming was like and how I could apply it to web design. And that experience really made me realize that there's really nothing I can learn because coding is a very difficult subject to teach yourself. But I was able to teach myself. And that experience has helped me in every other aspect of my life. What I'm doing right now, video editing, I'm able to edit videos myself. I'm able to edit audios myself. I'm able to so many aspects without having to study it because all I just need to do is to go and seek that information because I know that the information is out there. If I download an app, for instance, and I don't know how to use it, I'll go and start searching for videos. How do I use this app? And before long, before a short time, I'm already very proficient with using this app, the icons, everything. Even when I published my book, African Romance, the cover page, I wanted a graphic designer to design it for me, and she was calling this huge amount of money. I was like, this book, I'm not even know if I'm going to sell it because I'm just that. So I went and I think it was Cora I used. So I said, it took me just 2 days. I sat down and I was watching videos how to design. I would do the edits, go back, watch videos, and I was able to come up with a very standard book cover. So I think it's very important for the audience to realize that there is really nothing much that tertiary education offers today. I think for me, I would say the difference between staying at home and going to school is just that exposure you get to get, relating with people from different cultural background and the rest. But aside that, there's nothing that they are going to teach you that you can't teach yourself. So if you really want to learn something, as far as you have that way, like the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. So you don't have to limit yourself saying, "Oh, I didn't go to school." So
that excuse doesn't turn that.
Especially in this age of ChatGPT, where you can ask any question and get your answer immediately.
As you said, the most important thing is you go to go. That's why when people tell me I'm traveling abroad, I always tell them they're traveling abroad for school. I always tell them they're traveling abroad for school, relate with your classmates. Those things are more important than impressing your lecturer. Relate with your classmates. Because fear about an international education is that it puts you in contact with someone from United Arab Emirates, someone from Australia, someone from China. So you get to meet them, build your network, build human capital. But every other thing about intellectual capital, those things are very available. So what you said is so related. I have a friend too who wanted to do a logo for his business. He went and bought a graphic design. This was charging him so much. He said, and he did it himself. He showed me the other day. He has done it. He has branded it. He has a hoodie. He has face cap. But he did his logo himself. You understand? So, and he used that app. So that bubble has totally burst right now. That cage knowledge has totally burst. So, what my thought to universities to start doing is to reduce, number one, their time. Reduce time, you understand, that's very important. And reduce also cost. You understand, it costs too much to get an education, a formal education. And even normal schools are suffering right now. It costs too much because the overhead is too much. You have too many teachers. And for us to get to that level, it has to be a laying off of staff. Because there are some people that you cannot be teaching. There are some courses that you cannot have human beings teaching anymore. You have to have machines. You have to start employing AI to teach people. And that will mean cutting off jobs. But that would also mean in return what the students will pay go down. You understand? So it's something that needs to be figured out. It's not as straightforward as you must go to university. Then you ask you why. You don't go asking why should I go? I already know how to do this thing. I took out this 4 years of my life. You understand? So it's a hard puzzle to solve. But something has to be done by the institution.
Wow. Yeah, and I believe we'll get there. I think it was last week? Today is Friday. It was just this week. The CEO of Lognetics, he was looking for a personal assistant, and I recommended 2 persons to him. So one was she has studied law. She has been called to bar. She's just looking for money to go for NYSC. The other person is a virtual assistant. He also studied, and then I referred them to him. And he was like, he's not interested in what they study. That I should send him their social media.
Imagine that.
Wow. So that he can see what do they do, how do they. So I was like, wow, so you mean this is how we have gotten? Yeah. Nobody's interested in your certificate.
I see you saying that.
Yes.
I was just telling my wife that this week that you'll be surprised what CEOs are looking for. They're not interested in, can they do the job? Do they have the proof? So people are more interested in your social media, your activity on social media, and they are interested in your activity in school.
Yes.
You understand? That's the truth.
So if I someone who didn't go to school had an impressive social media,
you get the job over himself.
Yeah. So I hope we get there. So the next question on technology. So regarding technology, do you also share in the struggle of becoming addicted to social media? Checking status views, reactions, comments, and then how do you?
Oh, how do I deal with it? I'm still dealing with it right now. Of course, I share in that. It's a big struggle. I do share in that, you go to Instagram, you go to Instagram 5 minutes ago, you see yourself, I'm going back again. Like, what I did there? I just left 5 minutes ago. You understand? So and it was designed that way.
Yes.
I want us to realize that don't beat yourself up too much. A lot of times we beat ourselves up too much. I'm too addicted to social media. I'm too addicted to the internet. It was designed that way. The people that designed those things, they're not foolish people. They're very intelligent people. You understand that?
Yeah.
Most intelligent people in the world designed it. So it is not your fault that you are falling victim to a trap laid by an intelligent person. You can blame yourself if a mediocre designs something and like you're addicted to it. Do you understand? That means that you are no higher than a mediocre. But so what they've done, they designed it for it to be addictive. So it will always be hard to play with. Anybody that tries to simplify, I can't just do it. The person is being unrealistic. There's so much intellectual investment in developing social media platforms. There's so much fight. Do you know what
Yes,
fits into these things?
exactly.
We're talking about hundreds of millions, not billions of dollars into research and development, and you think you wouldn't be addicted. You were intended to be addicted. It's just like when you watch I'll put it this way, when you watch a horror movie made in Hollywood, you'll be scared. After watching it, you'll be scared to put off your light and go to bed, look at all the corners and stuff. Because the person that wrote that movie is he knows about that industry, the professional. If you were not scared, he had not done the job well. But see when you watch Nigerian movie and it's horror, you even be watching it like this, you'll be watching it, the fake light will just like what's going on. You don't feel it because that person is not as good at their job. Look, this Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all these things were developed by very intelligent minds, highly intelligent minds, highly invested in. Um, so it's addictive and it's always going to be hard. My biggest advice, and what I try to advise myself, and what I advise people, is we go to these things a lot of times because we are scared to be bored. Boredom has become a something that we resist at all costs. If you can embrace boredom, social media would have not such a strong hold on you. And so I realized that boredom is a gift. Um, you see, my phone right now, it's it's helping me because it has terrible battery. The battery is terrible right now. So if I fully charge it now, in 2 hours time, the battery will drain. If I go to the internet, in 1.5 hours time, the battery will drain, and then I have to go and charge it. And that I realized that going to go and charge it, I'm bored. I don't have anything to do. So I cannot even go to social media. So at that time, I'm just waiting for the phone to charge. And I realized that then I'll see a book and I'll now pick up the book and start reading. And in reading that book, I can read that book and take me away from my phone for a while. That boredom had made me look away elsewhere. It's that time of boredom right now. I will look at my kids and say, okay, let's go outside. Oh, let's go and feed the dog. Oh, let's go and feed the tortoise. Oh, let's go and you see, we need to. I think the problem is when we have too much access to devices, and so I see people now around nowadays walk around with power bank.
Yeah,
And power bank
plug in there.
so yes, so you don't understand that that battery going down is opportunity for you to come up and get there. You understand? And start slowly. Stop going out to your power bank. Stop going out to your power bank. When you stop going out to your power bank, you know what will happen. When you're watching something on the internet, you realize that the battery is going down, you wouldn't watch it again. You understand? Because you don't want that battery to go down, then you go off the internet. You understand what I'm saying? But when you're enabling yourself to recharge every single time, you are enabling yourself to continue to feed on that dopamine. You understand? That dopamine material. So I really believe that it's not going to get any better because the companies are profiting from it. We need to put limitations. Just like for myself and my wife, we put limitation for our kids. You understand, so that they do not have to take in this thing at the point where it becomes addictive. They do not like those limitations, but it's helping them. But the problem is, are we putting limitations for ourselves as parents? You understand? So it's always going to be an uphill battle. I share that battle. I see myself going on those platforms way too many times. But I realized that, and this is where I also believe that it's also the adverse effect of people not doing the jobs they are meant to do. You see, this issue of doing the job you love, we don't understand what it means. I realize that when I go out and I'm having discussions like this, or I go out for a talk, or I'm recording my podcast, social media is the last thing on my mind. Because I'm so involved in the work I'm doing that I don't think of checking my social media. The days when I go out and I have functions and I have a program, I have a speaking engagement, I will not check my social media for hours because I am so occupied. When people are doing the jobs they love, social media will not be useful. You understand what I'm saying? Like my daughter now here, right? You see, she's crocheting. She loves doing it. So she's not feeling bored. You understand? She's not feeling bored. She's doing it because she loves it. The time she's using to do it, her mind is not on TikTok. Her mind is on something she loves to do. My son loves to draw. When you allow him draw, his mind will not be on TV anymore because he loves TV too. He loves to watch, So technology is that thing that occupies your mind when you haven't embraced the work you want to be doing. If you love to work with chickens, every time you take your time working with chickens, you won't know when you put your phone aside and just involved in working with chickens. You understand what I'm saying? So when you do the work you love, when you are doing the job you love, it will fill the space that technology is trying to encroach on. So I would advise more people to find out the work they love and to immerse themselves in.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. I actually have two experiences that relates to this response you give. One was, I think 2019, the previous election. So I was going to my home to say to go and get my voter's card, and then because of that journey, my phone was snatched, by these wayside robbers. And then after that period, when I got home, I was like, no, I won't get a phone immediately. Let me just take this time to just be without the phone. And then what I realized was during that period, I think it was about 3 or 4 months, I read more books during that period than I have done ever. And when I said that I've read over 500 books, they think I'm joking. But because that period I was free, I was bored. I was bored. So and I'm the kind of person that I don't like to be bored. I want to be doing something.
Yeah.
So I started buying books. That money I would have spent in placing the phone. I used to I bought a lot of books. And the more I read, the more I became more interested in reading, and I kept reading. And I found out that I covered more books during that period. So when, remember when I was telling you when I had an issue with my phone, the screen broke, I was like, God, okay, maybe this is another opportunity for me to learn more. I will not bother about replacing the screen. I'll just take this time to learn. And so I think it's very important to, become bored.
Yeah.
And then the second experience is when I go for conferences and, I realize that when my phone is down, I get to network more with people. I get to speak more than when I'm my phone. So if when I'm my phone, I'm distracted. I'm just focused on my phone, what's going on.
Yeah. But when I'm with people that are
well then when I'm not with the phone, I'm able to engage in conversation. What is your name? What do you do? And then I make more friends. And so I've made this a thing that when I go for conferences, I just put my phone on flight mode so that there's no distraction. I just focus because that is the whole point of being there to learn and to network, and it has helped me a lot.
Yeah, you're so right. And for someone like me, I do a lot of speaking to the audience, and it's just incredible how I look at the audience, and when I start to, if you are going to be a speaker in today's world, you need to have that ability to shock people away from their devices. Because whenever I go somewhere, I go to speak, and I look at people, half of them are like this,
Exactly.
like this. So the task now becomes, it's not even speaking to them number one, it's getting their attention. So I always look at them like, how do I get them to look up? I know sometimes when I talk to people, I might see something shocking, and then they now begin to, then you see them, and they watch their phone again. And when I show them the second time, you see them put their phone again and let me listen to this guy. You understand? So I can totally attest to that fact that when you go out, most people are not, they're not even interacting with each other. You understand? They're just on their phones, listening with their, I think they're listening with their ears, but they're just on their phone. Yeah. So
that is actually a very,
or they are videoing themselves at the stuff and just like,
I was at a conference yesterday, and virtually everybody in front of me, the front row, everybody, they were either pressing for I was like, wait, hold on, did you like leave your house? All you want to come here just to come and take selfie? Because I don't see myself making that kind of better. I have to be at work. I consider work to be here, and I will just come here to come and take selfie and wait. That is a big challenge. I hope that people, get over it. People get to realize that this thing is meant to make you addicted. So you have to set limitations so that you don't miss out. Because imagine if at that conference yesterday I made a lot of friends, a lot of valuable. In fact, I don't think I've made as much valuable friends as I did yesterday. And just as you said, when you are doing your work, you don't become distracted. So what happened was I was not pressing my phone. I was not with my phone. I started going after the speakers that were called to speak. So once they are done speaking during the tea break, I would go after them to the VIP section. I would go and stand there. People are not allowed, but I would go and stand there and like, I want to see this person, I want to see this person. And I was able to get their cards, and then I realized that before now, when I go to introduce myself to people like this, I just tell them this is my name. They are not really interested. But then now when I tell them this is my name, this is what I do, this is what I'm contributing to society, they are like, oh wow, this is very nice, keep it up, this is my business card, let's stay in contact. So when you are doing your work, you actually find it difficult to become addicted. So you are focused on how do I do this because you love it. How do I do this? How do I improve? How do I become better? So it's really nice when you find your work.
So work is work is the most important subject matter in the world. Is in work that you find focus, is in work that you find fulfillment, is in work that you find God.
Thank you so much, sir, for really expounding that to us. Okay. So a few weeks ago, I listened to a popular preacher, and he was saying that the devil is working overtime to lower moral and cultural standards, so that when parents now counsel their children, it's no longer be a matter of don't fornicate, but at least if you do it opposite sex. So the moral standards is being lowered. And then I remember listening to a podcast where you titled 3 Things Destroying the World. And then you talked about, I think towards the end, you said women will continually be drawn to their fellow ambitious women, and men will be continually drawn to their fellow less ambitious men, because of how the moral standards is being lowered day by day. So now the question is, this moral decadence, who is to bear the responsibility of fixing it? Is it the government? Is it institutions? Is it religious institutions? Or is it the parents or we as individuals? Because it needs to be, we cannot keep declining. How do we fix it?
It's a collective, to fix that or to combat that. Cannot say the fixing of it. So you can only combat it. It will be a collective effort. It's parents, it's the individual, it's the government, it's the religious organizations. It's everyone to fix it. And that's true. The world is in a move tailspin right now. Everything is declining. Like I remember I was telling my wife that I've tried watching four things on Netflix. Some of them are limited series, some of them are movies. I've tried watching 4 in a row, and for each one I've watched, I've been confronted with either homosexualism, transgenderism. Those 2 things I've just been there. There's been everything. I've been all 4. I will stop watching this one. I say, I don't. Same the same as
They
the
are softly introducing it.
They're not subtly, not subtly. Because subtly is a different thing. The main character is homosexual. Do you understand? The main character is transgender. So it's not subtle. It is right there. It's the focus of everything. It's the subject matter around which that character is the character around which everything rotates. So you cannot avoid the character. It's not a one scene character. It's the character you see in most of the scenes. Do you understand? So it is not. It's a big problem. Do you understand? Now, parents have a role because of recent people have started unsubscribing to Netflix. I heard about how many million people around the world have unsubscribed because I think it was Elon Musk that started up this anti-Netflix campaign. And he said even if when you watch the kids program, there's a non-binary character there. I remember that. Yes, I just saw one yesterday. There's a program called Paw Patrol, which a lot of young boys like. They introduced a new character that is non-binary. You understand? Yeah. So now they started introducing kids to it. So where do the parents have what's the obligation of the parents? You cannot just put on TV for your kids every month and say, watch while I go and watch the car. Watch so I go and sleep. No, you have to vet. Before your kids watch something, you must watch with them. Before they read something, you must read before them. You cannot even do it with them anymore. You have to start doing before them. Yeah. You understand? You have to be proactive and just say, okay, I'm going to buy this book for my kid. What does it say? And I want them to watch TV. What do I want them to watch? So I see a lot of people are reverting back to what we were watching when we were growing up. They're reverting back to Sesame Street, the old Sesame Street, not even the new Sesame Street that is progressive. You understand? The old Sesame Street. People are going back to watching Voltron, Super Ted, all those things. So we need to be more proactive. We need to be more involved in the content. That's how you can do it as a parent. For the government needs to be more interested in the companies that are being allowed to come in, to understand, to establish themselves in any industry. We must begin to be more interested in, are these people, are they allowed to come in? Should we put restrictions on them? That's what China is doing. I don't know if going to allow TikTok come in and or Facebook come in and feed some propaganda and no, they won't allow it. They will ban it in there because they want to protect the minds of their people. Is our government that intentional? Or is just that easy for people to go to the Senate and grease some palms and allow them pass laws to allow these companies come here very easily, close to paying nothing? You understand? So the government has a role, but ultimately the individual has a role. We as individuals, we have a role to what we choose. You understand? So if your government doesn't protect you, your parents don't protect you, your spirit should protect you. And that thing about the human spirit, we know right and wrong, even before we are taught. You understand? We have a spirit of God, which some of us call a conscience, that tells us this is right, this is wrong, this is abnormal, this is normal, this is questionable, it's free to do this. If you cannot follow your spirit, then you are going to be lost. So we all have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility in addressing moral decadence.
Thank you so much. So it's a collective responsibility. Everyone needs to put hands together to solve this problem. Okay, so you recently published a book titled Inspire and Influence. Can you tell us a little about the book and how does it stand out from the millions of other self-help books available today?
Inspire and Influence has been a project that has been in the works for about 4 or 5 years now. And Inspire and Influence started out as it's basically the early episodes of my podcast. I know that podcast that a lot of people, apart from people that are intentional like you, will not go back to listen to. And so it's the early any episodes of my podcast where I talk about a lot of my journey, where it started from. And I remember after putting out the podcast for a couple, like a year or so, I had one of my mentees reach out to me and just say, "Sir, you should turn this into a book." And so we started working on it, and he started transcribing with my wife and stuff. And some years later, it became a book. Um, how does it stand out from other books right now? Is number one, Inspiring Influence is it didn't it's not written by an author. So I'm not a career author. I do not know how to write. And that is a good thing because I'm being as honest as possible. And so it's an interesting read because I'm not it's not it's not a trying to make up pages or trying to make up chapters. That's why you read Inspire and Influence, some chapters are 2 pages, some chapters are 5 pages, some are seven. You understand? It is just me starting and stopping when I feel I need to stop. So it's that organic. You understand? It's an easy read. It's not a heavy read. So even someone you don't have to be a big reader to read the book. So that's the advantage to the book. And it's the good thing is that I'm not trying to sell a book. I'm just trying to tell a story about my life and my experience in business, my experience in faith, my experience in family. So just me being absolutely vulnerable on both. And so it's interesting in the fact that a lot of people write books right now and they're trying to sell books. Like I remember going to the bookshop here in Abuja, and I looked at all the books, and they all just look the same. They all look the same cover design. It's not the same design, but the same concept of the design. The concept of the design is the same, all colorful, all with very shocking titles, so they're shocking you to get your attention, you know. And so with my book, because I'm not a reader, I do not know the trends of reading. So if I know the trends of reading, I would look for a shocking title, like I'd have put something like the Diaries of a Mad Abuja. You know, that to sell. Yes, that have to get attention nowadays because I'm not in that writer circle. It's different. You understand what I'm saying? The cover design is different. You understand? I didn't look for some colorful illustration. So the same way the book is written is very different. So I think that's the unique selling point of the book. It's very honest. It's very unscripted and it's very organic. You understand? So yeah.
And personally, I would attest to I would attest to that because I listened to a lot of the earlier podcast. In fact, I started from the beginning, from the bottom, and was just going up. And I can tell you personally that there's a lot of wisdom to be learned. There's a lot of knowledge, on different fields. So putting all of these things together into a book that you can just read as a go. Maybe you don't have the time to listen, or you might not be able to going back to go and listen. So you just have that one book where you read, you can come back to, you can mark pages, you can bookmark, and then I would really recommend that go and get that book, Inspire. And I think I would attach the link to the description of this podcast. I would really, really recommend you get to read the book because it will open up your eyes, open up your mind to a lot of things. You get to understand who Mr. Tola is. When I speak to my friends about it, I always say that when maybe I send a podcast, I'll ask them, have you listened to it? Because I know that there's no episode that they would listen to. There's no, even when I sent to my mom was like just one episode I sent to her and was like, wow, this man really has wisdom and I'm going to do this. And she started listening to your podcast, and but sometimes she will listen and she will send me feedback like, oh, look at what I learned from this episode. The man is really doing well. So when I recommend your episodes to people, I'm always intentional. I ask them, have you listened to it? Because I know when you listen to it, you are definitely going to learn something. So I will definitely recommend that you buy the book so you get like a whole package of all of those wisdom that has been put into the podcast.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay, so as I was saying, I opened the floor for questions to come from the audience, and a lot of questions came in. But I noticed that many of the questions that came in were questions that you have answered on the podcast. So what I did was I referred them to the particular episode that would answer that question well. But then there are two particular questions I feel like we should talk about here. The first one is actually um, let me read it exactly as he posted it. I think it's a guy that posted this. It was sent anonymously, but I think it's a guy. He said HTC once defined the future of smartphones. They built the first Android phone, pioneered innovations that shaped the entire mobile industry. Yet today, they are almost forgotten. They had the technology, but they lost the story. So my question is this: how can individuals, entrepreneurs, and even organizations build brands that not only innovate but also endure? Brands that connect emotionally, communicate clearly, and remain relevant over time.
Hmm. That's a good question. And the way it's framed, it's almost framed in a way that makes HTC appear to be on the losing end of the story. But that's not true. You see, we've become so, the human being has become so, has become so demi-God minded. And so we strive too much for longevity, longevity and over durability. And so longevity, you just say, I want to stay in this game for as long as possible. But durability thinks about what you are able to give in while you're in there. So you want to be durable. While I'm there, I want to contend and I want to leave my footprint. I don't think HTC has lost out. They just played their part and they existed. Life is like a play. There are different characters that take the stage at a particular time, deliver their lines, and they go. But this mindset that since I'm in this play, I must always be on that stage, and the life must always be on me, is a very hedonistic thing, a very selfish thing, and we've been influenced that I want to build something enduring. But it doesn't need to be enduring. It just needs to be, it needs to be number one, endearing. Think of something that is endearing over being enduring. And what that means is that let it call the people that it's meant to call at that time. It doesn't need to continue calling them. You can call them, bring them for somebody else to take over from there, then you are gone. So the Bible talks about it too. It talks about planting, watering, harvesting, but one person wants to plant, water, harvest, and wants to stay in the limelight. It's an insecurity that causes this. It's okay. Like for me, I run this podcast right now. Next year, I might not do it anymore. And I might even still do it, and my listenership is not as great as it might be this year. But within that time, have I been able to reach out to the person that needs to listen to carry on from there? We cannot always be in the spotlight. And so we have to embrace the thought of my brand is there today, and I'm going to make use of today because that's the gift I've been given to make use. And if tomorrow it's another brand that's there, and it's not by any feeling of mine that I dropped the ball, it's just how things turn around, then all the best to them. I'm glad I had the opportunity to lay the platform for them. And then what we see when we read the Bible, see the dynamics between Jesus Christ and John the Baptist. At the point, John the Baptist was the man that everybody went to learn from. And when Jesus came, they said his followership diminished and Jesus' ministry started to grow. And they went to John and said, hey, John, you are beginning to fail. See your guy. He's taking. And John was like, that's how it's meant to be. He's meant to increase so that I can diminish. I'm meant to diminish so that he can increase. That is one of the most profound things for me in the Bible. You need to be able to embrace life that way. It's such a today and here, I can't guarantee tomorrow. So that's life, you understand? So I don't think HTT has done wrong. They played a platform, they created a platform and they for other technology companies. It doesn't matter who is there tomorrow, who is there next tomorrow. They played their part. Without their part, other people cannot do it on. So when you're building a brand, never think of being there forever. I think when we think of being somewhere forever, it causes us to have what our democratic or political leaders are doing. They stay in the position for 20 years, 19 years, 50 years, you understand? Yeah. Because they don't want to do it. They don't understand that I did this, next person should come. But life is in transition. So we must be able to transit when our time comes. So you haven't failed because you were the big company 2 years ago and now you are number 500. No, it's about you're number 500 now, but while you were number one, you were able to inspire number one to 100. Do you understand what I'm saying? Once we can live our life that way, we see success and failure not as a measure of who can stay there longest, but who can impact deepest. That's what success is about. So the ATC impact deeply in technological space, yes, I must give them their flowers for doing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I believe if whoever asked that question would have gotten the clarity he's looking for, because I've also gotten to understand that it's not building a brand is not about staying too long in the game. It's about the impact you're able to make while you are while just like when you're having a relay race and it's kind of like a team play. So how you are able to run fast and hand over the baton to the next person determine how the next person will keep on. So it's not a matter of whether you run the whole race, but how well you run your own parts.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. So the final question for today, and I believe this question is coming from a lady because she said, what is the pathway to discovering one's purpose and working therein? And how can one discover her gifts? How can one also be led by the Spirit of God?
All right, that's a good question. When we talk about self-discovery, that's clarity. And I teach about clarity a lot. And I always say clarity comes in three layers. It's clarity of activity, clarity of relationship, and clarity of self. Clarity of activity is knowing what it is you are meant to be doing with your life. And so, how do you achieve clarity of activity? All these things are answers that we get from within. They can be validated by activities on the outside, but the initial evidence is within. And that's why it's very dangerous to tell someone, tell me what I should be doing with my life. No, no one can tell you. You are the one. You have the answers within you. So, factor, what should I be doing? It's always within in terms of what you enjoy. And what you enjoy might not be what other people enjoy, what draws you. So sometimes question of activity is what do I enjoy doing? Do you understand? What do I enjoy doing? This thing that I'm doing. Do I like it so much that when I'm doing it, I don't feel like sleeping, I don't feel like eating? All those natural things seem to be suspended when I'm doing this thing. It fills me in every way. So that's one way of knowing what you need to do, what you really enjoy. Number two can be what troubles you the most. So it might not be actual enjoyment, but things that you just can't shake your mind off. You just keep thinking about the bad design around and like, design should not be so bad. Design should not be so bad. It bugs you so much. I'm not like, thinking about these things, then it's bad, let's move on. You can't move on. When you are thinking about men, children should not go without food every single day. Everybody should have 3 spare meals. That is your own put. So it's either what you enjoy doing the most or that thing that bugs you out the most. There lies your calling. That thing that bugs you out the most or what you enjoy doing the most. So when you read the Bible, you see characters that someone like David enjoyed being with the sheep. He was with them. You understand? He was passionate about it. And so that was his first taste of leadership, leading sheep. Do you understand what I'm saying? Someone like Moses, he had a passion for his people, but he was very disturbed by the fact that they were slaves. He was so disturbed by why are these Egyptians troubles? Why are they beating them so much? You understand that kind of thing? You couldn't shake it off. That was where his calling was. So you need to be aware of what you enjoy doing and what troubles you the most. And that's why there's clarity of activity. Clarity of relationships, very important. And this is about who do you do these things for and who do you do it with. Now, once you sort out your activity, when you start doing it, you need to be open to those that come. A lot of times when we start doing our activity, the problem is we look out for people we want to sell it with and the people we want to do it with. You don't look out for them, you allow them to come. And so what happens is if I like to draw, I must be patient enough to look out for the people that say, Tola, I love your drawing is so good. I love to color, can I color this thing? I don't need to like the guy. The problem when we think of being to like people, I don't need to like him. It doesn't need to be my age mate. It just needs to be somebody that just shares in this activity that I'm doing. Like I once read the story of teenage mutants, teenage teenage mutants. Yes, yes, they are very popular right now. But how did they start? Two guys love to draw together. Their age difference is vast. One is young, the other one is much older than the other. But they love to draw. And they develop this drawing total. And one like, man, you draw this, I can draw it. And the other one develops it too. Put a bandana around the eyes. And before you know, they develop these four characters and this story. And the story blew up. They didn't have to be age mates. They just had to be activity mates. It was like, if you like this, I like this. So some people break activity, like she's a girl, I'm a guy, why should we be enjoying together? He's a Christian, I'm a Muslim, why should we be doing this together? He's white and black. No. Plenty of activity. Your activity will call the people that are meant to come. That's why I have some friends that are 10 years younger than me. I have some friends that are 20 years older than me. It doesn't matter. If the activity pulls them, let the activity pull them. They say something about honey. Once you put honey down, if it is real honey, ants will not come. Do you understand? That honey, that activity called honey doesn't attract ants. But if the honey is fake and it has sugar in it, if you put it down, go away, ants will come. That shows that it's fake honey. So what that's trying to say is that the activity calls the audience. You do not dictate the audience. So you choose your audience. Even when you are doing something, I want to be saying, people always think, I want to describe my target audience. I want my target audience to be business people that earn this. No. All you can do is put out your product and see the people that are attracted to you. When I started teaching, I was thinking I wanted to attract business people in their 40s, running companies. But when I started doing it, I was attracting 20-something-year-olds just graduated from university, still in university. I had to take it like that because those were my people. You understand? So clarity of relationships. And the last one is clarity of self. And clarity of self is more about your belief systems, your value system. So you must know what you value, what you believe, what your own personal ethos is. You must know. Very, 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 very important. And a lot of this has to do with your spirituality, what you believe about God. How do you experience God? When people talk about prayer, what is prayer to you? Some people prayer is kneeling down and putting their hands up. Some people prayer is just going for a 1 hour stroll and coming back. Some people prayer is listening to music. Some people prayer, you must know what works for you that allows you to connect with the spirit within you. That's clarity of self. You understand? You must know, even as little as books, what kind of books do you like to read? Some people say these self-help books. You don't like self-help books. Some people like fiction books. Don't think because this guy that is influential reads self-help books. No. You want these comic books, read your comics. That's how they're able to connect with the spirit within you more. Some people, they don't like to read. They like to watch TV. If you like to watch TV content, by all means, watch TV content. That's how your spirit is most enlightened as a person. So that's clarity of self. But once you have this clarity of self, of relationship, of activity, then you begin to do the things you ought to do in your life. And this is where purpose and fulfillment is cemented.
Wow. Thank you so much. So, person asking this question, in order to truly find your purpose you need to find clarity of self,
Yes.
clarity of relationships,
Yes.
and then clarity of activity. So once you're able to answer these three questions, or once you're able to get clarity on these three areas, then your purpose now naturally comes to, because when these two things comes together, that becomes the purpose.
That becomes purpose. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. This has really been a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for really taking out your time, to be with us. And to members of the audience, I believe you've learned a lot from this conversation today. And I would implore that, you don't just listen to this one time. I think it was Dr. Miles Monroe who said that when you listen to something at least 8 times over, that it becomes part of your consciousness. So you try as much as possible to listen to it one time, 2 times, as many times as possible, so that you get to learn what the core of the message, the core of the questions and answers that have been shared here today.